how has warfare changed?
From when it was in 22, 23, or
I guess there's been a lot of talk about how obviously drones play a major role in this war. There's also been some talk about how some standard equipment that's used, like tanks, people have speculated that they might be of limited use in the future, or that they're not as effective
Mm.
now.
I mean, that's kind of, it's true because we can, see it quite how much drone warfare is. This like a sort of is the war of drones and artillery. Those like two main things that really artillery and drones. Those are main things that are used, much cheaper to produce, obviously, especially for Ukraine. Like we don't have missiles, so like much to spare them. So what we can spare are drones. That's why I get pretty much like 90% of requests of I get are drones or like anti-drone equipment. So because Russians use drones as well, so we need anti-drone equipment as well. And yeah, it's pretty unhinged to see people getting blown up by drones when you like watch the footage. Pretty, I think it changed the perceptions of drones as something that is so much more related to war than it was ever before this whole conflict, in my opinion. But yeah, also the future, as people say, is very much drone warfare. And also, yeah, tanks aren't really depends, I guess, depends on the terrain, on the place when the war is happening, obviously, but in a sense, yeah, the war is definitely the war of artillery and drones. And yeah, and there have been a lot of like progress, I guess you could call it. Not the best word, probably, but the progress in that sort of industry as well, into how to use them, how to use anti-drone equipment, how to fight against drones, how to take them down. For example, I recently I think, how long was it? I don't remember exactly, but one of the volunteer projects was to get anti-air equipment that basically what it does is kind of like jams the signal, and the drones just they sit down. Their batteries go down essentially, and they just drop to the ground, and you can pick it up. But also the problem with that, of course, is that you can change frequencies, which we all do. Russians, Ukrainians, all do it, right? And then it becomes difficult again to take them down. So it's like this kind of like like an endless cycle of who will outsmart who and who will like find a way to make the drone warfare more efficient. Yeah. But also OPSEC is something that people really rarely talk about because of the everyone has cameras, everyone films shit, everyone films shit they don't need to film, like anti-air equipment and all sorts of things. And that's also something that I think previous wars didn't have to deal with because most people didn't have a camera that in HD in 4K films like everything what is happening. So in that sense, I think a lot of things about this war are definitely different from any other.
One thing that's been a topic of conversation, and there was a viral video from I believe last year or 2 years ago uh, about this, surrendering to drones. Now, the Ukrainian government has officially a policy on how Russian soldiers can surrender to drones if they want
Yeah.
to. There was one at least incident that was alleged. I've seen a video, maybe you've seen it too, of a Russian soldier who I believe was far behind enemy lines. He tried to surrender and he got blown up. Um, Obviously, that's sad. Uh, what do you think of the surrendering to drones? Is that like a realistic thing? How do we think about that?
Well, first of all, we had, interestingly enough, thrown our way some accusations of war crimes. Meanwhile, those people say literally nothing about Russia doing war crimes every day and filming those themselves and proudly. So they shooting people. There is a difference, big difference between what Russians do in sense like they would just recently they posted another one of just undressing our people, pushing them all to the ground, and just shooting them in the head. So that's a war crime,
You can send me this
But
video after.
of course, yes, there are plenty of them. Honestly, you can just find them on Twitter, like everywhere. But they post them regularly on Telegram. Or, for example, their human safari they do in Kherson, which is them running around trying to find civilians and just dropping bombs on them for funsies. So they find civilians walking around and just kill them with drones. So yeah, that's war crime. But with the drone and surrender, there is no law essentially. So according to like Geneva conventions, there aren't really a law that you can surrender to, like even like a helicopter. Like there isn't like really like a rule how to surrender to a technological thing, like to equipment or military or something. But with a helicopter, there's at least a pilot there, right? But with the drone, pilot is not in the vehicle. It's like he's like somewhere there. Some drones are automatic. They fly on their own, right? Some drones are FPV drones that just drop stuff. They're like kamikaze stuff. Some are scouting drones. Like there's a bunch of stuff. But there has to be also, I don't know about the video exactly you talked about, but the one that was presented to people like as a war crime was actually a video of the guy running away. So he didn't stop. Yes, then he started doing this, with his
Mhm.
hands. But it's not surrender. Surrender, you stop. You don't run. You stop. You turn around. You go down to your knees. You show your like you have nothing in your hands or anything. Of course, you don't wave a white flag like in like in that. But it's just you have to like definitely show if a guy is running and then at the very last moment when he's about to be blown up he turns around and understands that he can't run away and then starts doing like this, it's not surrender. So yeah, it's just I saw plenty of videos like that from very stupid people showing this, like the guy just keeps on running and the very last second turns around and starts like going like don't shoot me, essentially. That's not surrender. So yeah, that being said, it is a question, of course. It's quite difficult to do. And also there about to be some sort of like fuck ups as well. So
Yeah. Yeah,
to know how else to say this.
the one I
Yeah.
saw, the Russian soldier was like already wounded, I think, and he was I could probably find I probably can't find the video to be
Also,
honest. And he was already laying down and he
also,
was like this, don't, don't blow me up basically. And then
yeah,
they
that's
did so.
that's maybe, yeah. But by the way, also doesn't have to be if you're wounded, it doesn't make you not a target, unfortunately. So so
Well,
that's also kind of
unless
like
you're there's a specific term for it, out of combat, heuristic combat.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also very vague and very difficult, especially on the front, to calculate. So I'm not saying that the video you talking about it wasn't a
Hmm.
violation. Might have been. I haven't seen it, but yeah, but it is quite questionable to say the least how to even address that. But also, I mean, quite difficult to honestly give a fuck. I will be playing with you because just the amount of absolute blatant fucking war crimes Russians commit every day and film themselves doing, cutting heads of our people and putting them on spikes and film it. And after seeing that, I am not particularly pressed. Let's put it like this. If the incidents like our people, our soldiers, for example, breaking those rules like constantly, videos popping up everywhere, that would be obviously the reason to concern because you at least you have to try to be better than your enemies, right? Which we're doing. And but yeah, but since it's not like a systematic issue and it doesn't happen that much, I'm not like particularly pressed, although it should be obviously investigated by the people in charge of those things, and they should make their own conclusions about that as well. But as like a civilian, I'm not like particularly interested in finding things like that.
Okay. Oh, what lessons do you think people should take away from the changes in warfare?
Well, it's quite something to see things in such a detail, I suppose. For many people, that is a bit shocking to see, I think, because especially drone footage and things like that, right? So you can like literally watch guys being blown up in bits and pieces and like pretty good high quality video resolution up close. It's not really something that we, I think, from Ukraine, particular in Russia, it has been a lot of that stuff that people never saw. And I think that's something you shouldn't really be like particularly happy and gleeful about. But at the same time, even if you like, I'm a hatred for Russians knows no bounds, But even I, looking at those videos, I'm not feeling like, oh yeah, I don't feel like that sort of thing. I don't think it's like I don't. To make this clear, I'm glad they're dead and they will not like kill, rape, and torture and murder my people because they're invaders, and I want them gone either physically or they fuck off to their own country or they die, right? But I don't feel sad and I don't regret their death. But seeing that sort of brutal shit is never like a gleeful moment for me still because of just how fucking horrible it is. And watching this, I suppose, must make some people at least think that that's something to be prevented and avoided. And unfortunately, it doesn't make them think that it should be avoided in Ukraine, I guess. But as much as people enjoy using us as meat shields, so to speak, at least maybe they will consider that their own people in danger and shouldn't be dying like this. And maybe we should do something about people who are at fault, which is Russia, that is happening right now.
Now, you've talked about human rights, and it sounds like you're of the view that Russia regularly engages in human rights violations against Ukrainian POWs. You mentioned
And not of
also
you.
killing civilians. I and there was a massacre allegedly in Bucha. I've seen a
Not
documentary about this.
allegedly.
It seems, yeah,
Yeah.
the evidence seems pretty strong. I agree.
Hmm.
Well, why do you think Russia's doing this? Is it, you said, terrorize the people? Do you think that's really it? They just want to make you submit, basically, and scare you?
First of all, I really want to point out it's not nothing is alleged about it. All the world organizations confirmed what
Right.
happened in Bucha as a massacre, and including even shitty UN that I personally hate. Even they confirmed it. So mass systematic abuse and sexual and torture and starvation of our prisoners also have been confirmed as a systematic issue by Human Rights Watch, by UN, and all sorts of organizations. And the European Council of Human Rights, I believe it's called, as well, officially made a statement that they confirm it. So none of that is alleged, and the most funny bit is that they filmed it themselves. That's I find to be the most interesting stuff about them because they post the decapitations, castrations, they post hunts of civilians in Kherson on drones. They do also as well, and they all of that is you can find it's because they themselves film it. So yeah, I think recently there have been a statement as well. Oh, by the way, the deportation, mass abduction of children was confirmed also by UN, Human Rights Watch, everyone, and especially the warrant that was given towards Putin, which doesn't do anything. He can wipe this ass with his warrant, but the warrant was given to him because of the abduction, mass abduction of Ukrainian children. So all of that is not alleged. It's something that has been indeed confirmed by all pretty much international orcs. And yeah, that being said, the reason there are two reasons really. One reason is they can and they do it. So if there's no like punishment and there's nothing that is done against that, that people will engage in that sort of thing. And second is a terror. You film things like that, you show them proudly and loudly, and especially decapitation videos, they are pretty gleeful with those. So you post them and you demoralize people, you instill fear amongst the soldiers and the Ukrainian population as well. And also, frankly, they hate us. So, you know, that hatred motivates people to commit pretty heinous shit, unfortunately.
Actually,
Yeah.
earlier this month, I visited the United Nations headquarters. You mentioned that you have a low opinion of the United Nations. Why is that?
Yep. Because there are fuckwits that don't do anything. They pretty much just talk and they just get their money and they don't do anything to assist us and to stop and prevent anything. Their warrants mean absolutely nothing because they only mean something to people who are not committing these crimes. So that's the sad bit. So people who give a fuck about the opinion of the United Nations are already the people who are not committing heinous mass murdering crimes, right? So France, I don't know, like Britain, whatever, right? People like that are already playing by the rules. People like Russia don't play by the rules. They don't care about the rules, and they don't care about your any rules of war or any engagement. They laugh at them. So, because of that, those organizations are not effective when it comes to halting or doing pretty much anything to help us return our people, to stop Russians from violating every single law they possibly could. For example, UN came to Izium, which is a little town in Kharkiv region where the biggest mass graves since Yugoslavia genocide were discovered. And I've been there when they have been pulling bodies out of the graves. And saw, the corpses, castrated corpses with no genitals, thrown there. And majority of the corpses that were thrown there were civilians, and what, and literally nothing, right? So you can, what they do is they show condemnation to people who don't care about their condemnation. That's their job. And I personally find this job to be the least satisfying job on earth, and also the least useful.
Now, Russia has also executed foreign volunteers,
Yes.
people like Americans,
Hmm.
Britons, Japanese people, whatever, who come to Ukraine to fight. Um, them and their two former satellite states, the unrecognized DPR, LPR people, they captured and executed foreign volunteers. Now, I believe this is actually illegal under international law as well. Um, I guess Russia doesn't care though. We talked about that too.
Yeah.
Now, how are Russian prisoners of war treated when in Ukrainian custody?
Seems to be all right. Like from what I didn't really speak with them that much, to be honest. But from the what the orcs, all of the orcs of the above we just mentioned say, they seem to be say that they are pretty good, in pretty good conditions. At least from what I've seen, I only seen exchanges. And our lads, our Russian lads in Ukrainian captivity look pretty good, let me tell you. Not thin or like horribly treated. When our return, they, well, just Google the photos, I guess.
Okay. Now, I do want to ask you about.
Well, by the way, they should be treated well. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't be. It's not like I didn't mean that they should look the exact same way our people look. No, there is a code, there is a rule of conduct, and even if your opponent is disgusting, evil trash that doesn't care, you shouldn't sink down to their level. I would never want our people to participate in any sort of like torture or anything disgusting like that. So I, of course, think they should be treated, with dignity, and as much respect as a prisoner of war should be afforded, I suppose.
That's good. Now, I do want to ask you too about the orcs thing. I know this is kind of a discussion that was happening on the NAFO space for a while on Twitter, and a lot of people have voiced their perspective on this. I'm of the view personally that I don't think you should like dehumanize Russians. Um, I don't think that using the orc language is good. I don't care. I'm not gonna like tone police you or anything. You can call them orcs if you want on my show. I don't care. But what do you think of that? Do you think that that's illiberal to dehumanize an entire ethnic group essentially?
No, no, of course not. They dehumanize themselves by acting inhuman towards us every day. So I don't have I don't owe them humanization. It's not on me. I personally don't really use orcs that much or anything like that, because I think it's kind of trivializes how awful they are. Because I don't want to call them. I think Russian is a bigger insult than orc. So that's just what I use. And because orcs are, at the end of the day, fantasy creatures, and these are unfortunate for all of us in real life. So because of that, also the dehumanization have a little bit of I don't know, it's like a coping mechanism, it seems, for many people. I don't like that pretty much. What I mean by that is people would be like, oh, they are not human because they're doing this and this. And to me, that's like a way to kind of push them away from ours, right? To think, oh, we wouldn't do that. Like, there must be different species, right? Humans would never do such awful things. But problem is, people did do such awful things, and they do such awful things. And it's something we need to recognize. We need to see them just as human beings that are committing horrendous things. Some people are also fucking evil. Okay, it's something that Westerners have a big time at accepting, I suppose. And I'm saying, not saying all Russians are, right, but those particular people that are committing those crimes, for example, there are evil and there are people. And that's very not a pill most people want to swallow, because what you do is you distance them, right? You're like, oh, they decapitated a person on camera and they're not humans, right? So because humans wouldn't do such a thing, but they did and they would, and they did worse things. Okay, so because of that, I don't think like you should say like slavers are not humans, or like, I don't know, Nazi Germans are not humans, because they obviously were and they are. And yeah, so in that sense I agree with you that dehumanization doesn't really need to happen in that sense. But in a broader sense, when people dehumanize them, they mostly do it because of their absolutely unprecedentedly horrendous acts they commit. So in that sense, I'm not like pressed at all. If people want to express their anger, express their like frustration with that, especially Ukrainians, no police in there whatsoever. But even like with the Westerns, it's a little bit like, probably you can, come on their like, you'd be like a little bit more strict there, because you're like, well, it's not you that's happening to, right? But that in a sense, also, I also don't care that much. It's words. It's words. It doesn't matter as much as people in the West seem to think it does. Actions, though, do. Yeah. And also, you have to be pretty. I don't know. Most people are actually, when they use orcs, they primarily also talk about soldiers themselves. So like the invaders themselves. I don't see anything wrong with that. Like they're literally like fascist, genocidal freaks. So call them however you want to call them. But if you every single Russian on planet Earth is an orc, then yeah, that's probably not. I have some very small number of Russians that I know, incredibly small couple people, but who are very genuinely, honestly anti-war, and they're like good people who root for Ukraine, even risk their own safety by donating, for example, right? So I wouldn't obviously call them that. So yeah, but the majority is either conformist, so they are just kind of like getting with it, so they don't care that much, or they just there's absolutely no care about Ukraine or about what the Russians in general are doing to the world and to Ukraine in particular. So, do I have like any love or sympathy or anything of that sort for them? No, not at all. Yeah, but also mostly people are talking about, as far from what I see at least, when they say orcs, they mostly mean actual like invaders on the ground and everything. So in that sense, I don't see the problem with that. But I'm of the opinion that we shouldn't really be coping with the idea that those are some sort of different species. Okay, they're not. They're just like anyone else. So you could be born in Russia and be indoctrinated, or be this rabid, xenophobic asshole because you just grew up there. It doesn't exalt. It doesn't like it doesn't remove responsibility or accountability, mind you, but it's not a thing that is unique to them. It's not the thing that is unique to Russia. Like, for example, Germans back in World War II, uh, plenty of them were Nazis, right? Ideologically, right? Have they start being human because of that? No, So, and anyone could be that. Anyone could be fascist. Anyone could be communist or whatever, right? So it's not a Russia specific gene that does it. Such a thing doesn't exist. It's not like about the ethnicity or the I don't know, like it's more ideology, culture. That's yeah, that's what it's about. It's not about them specifically being Russian. Just to point that out, because some people kind of pull it like a little bit in an unhinged direction. So they would be like the Russian evil gene. There's no such thing. I have an evil Russian gene. Okay, my mom is half Russian. Doesn't mean anything. So I'm against that specifically. So if people start talking about some sort of biological level, then yeah, that's not true, and also cringing pretty awful.
And to be clear, in my first interview with you, you actually talked about how you are a Russian-speaking Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, in Kharkiv, most people are. To be honest, it's not like me specifically or anything. Yeah. So yeah.